All right, stick with me here for a second. So, if you're a hunter, you can tame all sorts of different creatures. There's lots of different options for what hunters can tame, and one of those options is a bird. And there's many different types of birds inside World of Warcraft. Several of them are actually considered to be hawks. So you could have multiple hawks that you've tamed as a hunter. You could have several of them, up to three of them, even in Classic. You could have three different hawks. Obviously, if you're going to do that, you need some way to keep track of which is which. So to me, it just seems like the obvious way to do that would just be to number them, right? So then inside your stable, you would have Hawk 1. And then immediately after that one, you would have What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Sounds Good Makes Sense, a discussion show for the World of Warcraft player. My name is Devilor, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. This might end up being a slightly shorter episode, but what I'm going to do is I have a list of notes and important things that I consider to be at least among the most important details to know about Season of Discovery Phase 4, which is launching today if you're seeing this on YouTube. If you're early and seeing this on Patreon, it's tomorrow. Congratulations to me, mostly because I got this video out early enough for that to matter. Anyway, so what we're going to do is I've just got a list of important details that I want to make sure I get this information out there. And anybody who is interested in going into Season of Discovery Phase 4 has a quick reference for some of the most important changes and updates and new things to look out for. And I'm going to stay as spoiler free as I can. Basically, I'm sticking entirely to things that either Blizzard has announced themselves or was something they were actively testing on the PTR. So stuff that Blizzard has intentionally put in front of players so far. I'm staying away from stuff that's only come out through data mining. I'm staying away from stuff that is largely conjecture themed and so on. So first off, let's talk about timelines a little bit. Just what is the actual release cadence for stuff that's coming out? So first of all, today, July 11th, or tomorrow, if you're watching this early on Patreon, July 11th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then 10 p.m. Central European Summer Time or Paris time. That is when the phase actually launches. The servers will be up before then. Basically, at some point, you'll just see that your experience bar suddenly, if you're sitting at max level at 50, you will see that your experience bar becomes available. And at that point, you can go off and start doing some things. If you are going to, by the way, just as a side note, if you are going to level some alts, I recommend logging into them and logging back out after this occurs, just to make sure that they're earning rested XP. But anyway, at this time, that's when the phase actually opens, and there's a bunch of content that becomes available from day one. That includes leveling up to 60. There's no raids yet available on the first week of Season of Discovery Phase 4, but there is a ton of dungeons available at level 60. All of the normal dungeons like Ubers, Stratholme, all of that stuff will be available and accessible. And they've even said that the Tier 0 gear quest lines, the updated and revamped Tier 0 gear, which again, that's something that they're doing, is they're done the standard, like go through and update a whole bunch of gear stuff. And that includes the Tier 0 sets. Those quest lines will be available. So there's going to be a lot to do in the first week of Season of Discovery Phase 4. There's plenty to dig your teeth into and a lot of stuff to do. There's also apparently a new dungeon that's being released. We've seen some teasers and expecting it to be based on the imagery that Blizzard has showed. I'm personally expecting it to be somewhere up in Felwood. But they've also said that there will be some sort of attunement quest chain that's needed to access this dungeon. So that's something to keep an eye out for. The following week, the 18th, that is when the quote unquote world boss raid instances open. It's a bit weird to call them world bosses now that they're in raid instances. But these are, as a reminder, these are Kha'Zix and Azurgos. Kha'Zix will be available inside the Tainted Scar raid dungeon, and Azurgos will be available inside the Storm Cliffs raid dungeon. And I'm assuming that those are just going to be like portals or something that you go into inside the respective areas where those world bosses used to hang out. But those are instance content now, and those will be available starting on the 18th, as I said. And those are on a twice a week lockout. So this is not a 3-day lockout. I've still seen a few people that are confused about that. It's not a 3-day lockout. It's actually a 4-day lockout followed by a 3-day lockout, which allows them to have them basically be the same reset days every week. So don't worry about the number of days. It just gets confusing if you try to think about it in that way. Think of it more as they always reset on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Easy enough. Always reset on Tuesdays and Saturdays, which also means that since this is a Thursday release, you basically have that Thursday and Friday if you want to get into the first lockout. You will have until Friday the 19th for that very first lockout. If you end up missing it, it's not really the end of the world. Like, these are world bosses. They're going to have a few drops. The first groups that clear them are probably going to be bringing as many people as they possibly can, because these are tuned for I failed to mention this. These are tuned for 20 players, and you can bring a maximum of 40. So they're designed to be completable by 20 players. But if you're a pickup group, and especially an early pickup group where people don't really have a lot of time to get gear yet, probably going to want to bring more than that. Which also in turn means that if you miss this first lockout, it's not the end of the world because you're probably not going to get loot anyway. The number of the items that they drop does not increase with the number of players. So there's a little bit of an incentive to bring as few players as possible because then it's more loot per player, essentially. But like I'm saying, I expect these first groups to probably bring more people than otherwise, which in turn means that if you miss out on this first lockout, it's not the end of the world. The second lockout after that, that will last until Monday the 22nd. So you do have a little bit of extra time if you just want to get into those in the first couple of weeks, basically. Now, the following week from the world bosses opening up, that's when Onyxia and Molten Core become available. That's going to be on July 25th. And Onyxia is very similar to the world bosses. This is, again, tuned for 20 players, but you can bring up to 40. And that means, well, I don't actually know what that means in terms of difficulty. It's entirely possible that that means the difficulty hasn't changed because with all the new runes available, with the tier 0 stuff already being available, Onyxia would probably have been completable by 20 people anyway, even without any difficulty changes. But again, that brings it up to being able to bring 40. And Onyxia is on that same twice a week lockout. So Tuesdays and Saturdays will be when Onyxia is becoming available and when Onyxia resets, which again means that if you want to get into that first lockout, that will be July 26th. And then the second lockout will be Monday the 29th. Molten Core, however, is locked to 20 players. It is a 20-player raid instance. Again, I don't know exactly what that means overall in terms of difficulty, especially because Molten Core is also bringing in this variable difficulty system, which there's apparently an NPC just like right inside the dungeon that you can set what difficulty you want for that. Now, important thing to note about the variable difficulty system, it does not increase the quality of the loot you get, only the amount of loot that you get. So there is an incentive to bump up that difficulty if you want to gear out more of your group as quickly as possible, because you will get more drops for turning up the difficulty, but you do not get better items. It's not like a heroic Titan Forge, whatever sort of system. It's the same items, you just get more of them. There's no word on if that increases the chance for things like the Sulfuron, the Eye of at Ragnaros or whatever it's called, Ember of Ragnaros. I forget the exact name of the item, but there's no word on if that increases your chance for getting that legendary drop to occur. And it's also unclear if there is a way for you to change the difficulty once you are partway through the dungeon, or if it's something you set once and as soon as you start killing bosses, it's locked to that difficulty. I'm hoping that there's a way to change it because that will at the very least make like clearing those earlier bosses a bit less like mind-numbingly boring for especially like more casual guilds later on when it's like, okay, we're just plowing through these first few bosses, but you never know. We'll see. They've also confirmed that there are 11 bosses in Molten Core, which means there is a brand new one that we don't really know anything about just yet. I'm sure there's been some data mining about it, but I haven't looked at that. So as far as I'm concerned, we don't know what the 11th boss in Molten Core is as of yet. I'm also assuming that there's going to be some mechanical updates to the other bosses, the way that they've done for things like Gnomragon and so on in the past. Just because, if nothing else, Molten Core is, at least the first several bosses are going to be pretty dull if they haven't updated the abilities. Who knows? Maybe the bottom level difficulty in their variable difficulty system is just Molten Core as it was, and then it increases from there. We will have to see. But fights like Lucifron really are your druids and mages AFK. If not, you win. So I'm assuming that there's going to be some new mechanics implemented to the other bosses. And again, that's a weekly lockout on Tuesdays for Molten Core. It is just a once weekly lockout. They had originally announced that it was going to be on the twice weekly lockout, but they went back on that, especially after people said, oh my God, this is actually too much, which is a bit of a whiplash coming off of phase 3 where there was almost nothing to do. But I think it's a good change making Molten Core a weekly lockout because there really is. There's enough else to do that I don't think we need to spend 2 lockouts a week inside Molten Core. And the variable difficulty system will help with the gearing up, the rate of gearing up for the raid, if that's something that you want to do. So again, that is Tuesday lockouts for Molten Core, meaning that the first reset occurs after Monday the 29th. So that ultimately means that if all you're really worried about is getting in on an early Molten Core clear, getting in on that first Molten Core clear, you technically have a full 18 days to get that done. Obviously, there's a lot of other work that you're going to need to do. You're going to need to collect some gear. You're going to need to have a level on top of that. There's probably some profession stuff that you'll want to do. So it's not just 18 days to get to level 60. but 18 days is still a long time to farm those dungeons, get yourself leveled up, etc. So there isn't as much of a need this phase to really go into it at a breakneck pace if all you're worried about is getting into that first Molten Core clear. Moving on, I want to talk about some rune stuff. So I'm not going to go into any specifics about the new runes in Season of Discovery Phase 4. You can look them up if you want to see what yours are. It's all been data mined, and some of it has been posted, and I think some of it was even testable on the PTR. But if you want to look up what the new runes are, go ahead and do that. I'm going to stay away from saying specifically what the new ones are here in this video, but I will comment that the new rune slots are Cloak and Ring. Now, the Cloak slot seems to be the only one that's actually class specific. The vast majority of the Ring slot runes are just stuff that's like base utility or just passive stats, more or less. So the Cloak slot is the only one that's really going to affect your rotation in any meaningful way, unless you have like weird hit breakpoints or something that you can reach with the rune slots. And talk about some of the rune changes that are coming in as well. So Hunters have a whole bunch of changes happening to their runes. One is that Kill Command is being replaced with Kill Shot. So Kill Command is just going away. That just doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, Beast Mastery Hunters, you lose that thing. But Kill Shot is coming in, and Kill Shot is it's Kill Shot. It's pretty much what you expect it to be. Heart of the Lion, basically the way that Hunters provide Blessing of Kings to the raid, that is now a spell book. That is now something you can just have and just activate as a hunter. And the rune itself is being replaced with something called Cobra Slayer, which basically gives you some Mongoose Bite procs, an extra way to activate Mongoose Bite. Invigoration is being replaced with something called Wyvern Strike, which is another melee attack. And just in general, if you can't tell from what I'm saying here, Melee Hunter is being reworked a lot. It's no longer just straight up Raptor Strike spam until you win. There is actually, it seems like they're trying to work to get a bit of an actual rotation in for Melee Hunter, which is interesting to see. I still don't like Melee Hunter, but it is something that I'm glad to see. At the very least, they're trying to make it a little bit less of a one-button rotation. For Paladins, Exorcist is now a spell book. So you can just get that as a spell book. It's being replaced with Aura Mastery, which is Aura Mastery. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Martyrdom is also becoming a spell book, and that's being replaced with something called Divine Light, which is a bit of a souped up Holy Light spell that gives a barrier if you overheal. It's kind of cool. It also benefits from everything that benefits Holy Light, which is very nice. Horn of Lordaeron seems to just have been removed entirely. I wasn't able to find a spell book for it. I think they just straight up removed Horn of Lordaeron entirely, which is interesting. But it's being replaced with Hallowed Ground, which is a rune that turns your Consecrate into a heal. So that's pretty cool. A couple nice little things for Holy Paladins. And again, these are just old runes being replaced. This is not brand new stuff. Well, I guess it's kind of brand new in some ways, so I apologize for that if you were hoping to not get spoiled on this, but this is more just noting when you log in, if you're these classes, that this is what happened to your runes. A couple more to get through. Rogue has had Shiv removed, and that's being replaced with Cutthroat. Cutthroat basically allows your backstab, ambush, and garrote to be used from any direction, and also gives you a proc for backstab to activate ambush. So this is something that has existed in various forms of rogues being around in the past. I don't remember exactly when. I've never really mained rogue, but it is something I remember existing. Yes, this does mean that you can now essentially face stab instead of backstab, so have fun with that. And for Shaman, Shamanistic Rage is becoming a spellbook. They're changing some of the numbers on how that works as well. It's being replaced with Greater Ghost Wolf, which allows you to use Ghost Wolf indoors and also gives you a 10% damage reduction. Personally, I think Ghost Wolf should have gotten the same sort of treatment that like the cat talents for, I forget the exact name of it, but the cat talents for druids got, where it allowed to be worked indoors. I just feel like Ghost Wolf should be usable indoors anyway, but here you go. You have a rune for it that allows you to activate that. There are also a few runes being moved around, so not really mechanically changed too much, but just moved to different slots. So for mages, Hot Streak is going from your belt to your helm slot. Rewind Time is going from your gloves to your bracers slot. For priests, Power Word Barrier is going from your legs to your bracers. For warlocks, Incinerate is going from legs to bracers, and Soul Siphon is going from your chest to your cloak, actually. So that's becoming one of your new cloak slot runes. And then Warrior, Endless Rage is going from gloves to helm. Now, I mentioned a bunch of runes are becoming spell books, and the good news is all of those spell books, including all of the old ones, will be available for purchase in Stormwind and Orgrimmar. If you're Horde, they're at the Valley of Wisdom in Orgrimmar, and if you're Alliance, they're at the library inside Stormwind Keep. So you can go and find a vendor, and you can just buy the old spell books as well as these new ones that are coming in replacing runes. You can just find those for purchase in there. You cannot buy, there are apparently some new spell books that are being added. You will not be able to buy them. And you also are not able to buy runes directly yet, but Blizzard did say that they're working on something to do that. It sounds like they're trying to do something more involved than just put them on a vendor. They said something about how some of them were hooked up in such a way that they were important for various reasons. I'm assuming that that means that they still want you to be able to experience the like little bit of environmental storytelling that happens with some of those. And there's a few that like send you to interact with specific like NPCs and so on. It seems like they're building some story for. So I'm assuming they want you to be able to get those runes and still get that little bit of story without it being as much of a pain. So I'm guessing that's why they weren't able to just put these on this vendor, because it just didn't really fit what they were trying to do. But I don't know. We'll see in the future. That is still a bit of good news for those who wanted some sort of catch-up mechanic for runes, because it does sound like Blizzard is working on something. It's just not available immediately at launch of Phase 4. Last note on class-specific stuff is that the ability for priests to get a second priest racial ability, so Fear Ward and so on, is coming, and that is something that will be available in Phase 4. Blizzard has said, they teased that it's a server-wide unlock, so I don't know exactly what that means, but that's something to keep an eye out for, especially if you're a priest. Couple other updates to existing content. Nightmare incursions are becoming a daily quest hub, and the difficulty of them is reducing to be soloable. Now, it's important to note that these quests can no longer be obtained past level 53. That's the Feralus and Hinterlands ones, which are the highest level Nightmare incursions. The quests will no longer be obtainable past level 53. And I've seen a few people saying, oh, they just don't give XP anymore. That's not what the patch notes said. The patch notes literally say these quests will not be available, will be unobtainable, is the actual word that they used, past level 53. So if you are wanting to use those dailies to level up a little bit, you can do so up to level 53. If you want to use them to get reputation, again, you can do that up to level 53, but you will not be able to get those quests anymore past that level. They did say that there are going to be repeatable versions of the gathering quests available at max level, so you can go back in and get your reputation up if you need to finish off that reputation, or there's other rewards that you want to get from it. You can go ahead and do those gathering quests at max level. But they didn't say anything about anyone who's not a gatherer, so there's a big question mark hanging over that one still for me. We'll have to see how it ends up working out. It sounds a bit weird to me, completely honest. I don't know why they just didn't make the daily quests give XP anymore past level 53. They're literally taking them and making them unobtainable. That's weird to me, but that's what they said they're doing. So we'll just have to see how it works out. The Blood Moon event, blissfully, seems to not be getting much attention in this phase, which I am very happy about because I'm very tired of the Blood Moon event. And I haven't even done it that much. I got tired of it ages ago. And I got tired of seeing like best in slot rewards coming from the Blood Moon event because I didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm glad to see that. It is getting a new coin for level 58 and above kills. And the honor commendations are being made cheaper. So if you do still want to go and do it and participate in that event, you can get some honor from it. And that honor seems like it's going to be a little bit easier to come by. But other than that, there isn't really much happening for the Blood Moon event in Phase 4, which honestly, again, I'm just a big fan of. Now, that's probably at least in part because there is a new event that's coming in this phase. That is the Blackrock Eruption event. And the theme of this event is basically every 2 hours, Blackrock Mountain becomes unstable and it starts erupting. And this affects obviously Blackrock Mountain, but also the Searing Gorge and Burning Steps right next to it. And while this is ongoing, inside Burning Steps and Searing Gorge, there are going to be some new daily quests available, as well as some new spawns. And doing that stuff will get you a currency, which is some sort of like, it's like Firelands motes or something like that, or I forget exactly what the name of the item is. But you get a new currency from doing those things, which can then be turned into a reputation quartermaster or whatever, actually inside of Blackrock Depths for Thorium Brotherhood stuff. You can also get Hydraxian Waterlords rep from this. But the Thorium Brotherhood stuff, these rewards, you can exchange them in Blackrock Depths, like I said, and they seem to sound like they need the Thorium Brotherhood crafted items to actually turn them in. So you're taking a crafted Thorium Brotherhood item and you're turning it into a better version of itself, is what it sounds like. But importantly, it doesn't sound like you actually need to be the one who crafted that item. So if you're trying to get your fire resist gear and you want even better fire resist gear, you want it to be nicer than just the base crafted stuff, you can get a hold of that original crafted item from someone else who's crafted it for you. You can go and do this event. You can take it down in the Blackrock Depths and turn it into a nicer version. As for the Hydraxian Waterlord stuff, that stuff they have said still comes from Duke Hydraxis up in Ajara. And they said it starts at Honored Reputation, but they haven't said anything else about what those rewards actually are. I'm sure it's been data mined. You could probably look it up if you wanted to. But again, for the point of this video, We don't know what it is yet. Just that once you've reached honored reputation with the Hydraxian Waterlords, there is new stuff available at Duke Hydraxis beyond just, quintessences and stuff. Now, the other really interesting thing about this event is that while it's ongoing, honor kills are completely disabled in Searing Gorge and in Burning Steppes. You do not get honor for killing anyone in those two zones while this event is ongoing. But inside Blackrock Mountain itself, you get triple the honor for kills during this. So to me, this kind of brings back that old like nostalgia mindset of, okay, Blackrock Mountain, especially if you're playing on a PvP server, Blackrock Mountain becomes this just like free-for-all PvP zone. It's like, well, I guess faction PvP, free-for-all means something else, but just a ton of PvP that happened inside Blackrock Mountain, and that very rarely ever actually spilled outside of BRM back in the day. So this is sort of encouraging that notion of, yeah, we're going to fight inside BRM, especially while this event is going on, and we get triple honor for doing so, while also making sure that the people who just want to go there and do the quests and stuff, you just do that. You can just hang out outside. Don't go inside the mountain, but you can hang out outside and try to not get yourself killed. Incidentally, though, this also means, just as like a point of warning, if you're planning to do something like Ubers or Elbers or BRD or anything like that, probably check to see if this event is about to occur, because if it's going on when you get there, it might be a little bit more difficult to actually get to the dungeon entrance. Final little note, there's a couple other reputations that are worth calling out. Those are the Argent Dawn and Timbermaw Hold. They basically are being updated to allow crafters to turn in items that are crafted from those reputations, which will then give you a BOP item that's a little bit of an upgrade, as well as requires you to have that actual profession to be able to use. So essentially, this is just the new version of this is you're crafting your best in slot. Blizzard has even said they intend for these to be either pre-raid best in slot or just full out best in slot outright for phase 4, which I'm not a fan of. I really don't like best in slot items coming from crafting. I know that that's a pretty stereotypical crafting thing from World of Warcraft, especially during Classic. But to me, it's annoying. I don't want to have to do crafting to get my best in slot gear. I don't want to do it. But still, that's the direction that they're going with it. And hopefully that eventually falls off and becomes less important once Blackwing Lair comes out. Anyway, those are at least the collection of what I consider to be the most important things to keep in mind going into Season of Discovery Phase 4. Obviously, there is likely to be a lot of discoveries made in the first few days, a lot of runes becoming uncovered. There's likely to be stuff that we haven't even thought of yet that will come up as a result, and I'm sure we'll be covering a lot of that here on the channel in the future. If there's anything super important for like day one, week one stuff that you feel that I missed, please do leave a comment below and let me know. Let other people know as well. You scroll through the comments, see if anyone's calling out anything important that I forgot to mention. But anyway, that's going to wrap us up here for today. Thank you again so much for watching, everybody. I will see you later.